Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Conversations with Cavallo, our new series from Cavallo, where we're going to be peeling back the curtain on some of our product features, talking to some folks within our organization, bringing some thought leaders in from outside. Think of it like a coffee break with with Cavallo, minus emails and PowerPoints and such. I'm your host, Dean Holmes, and today we're going to be kicking things off with a topic that is about working harder or working smarter, not harder, as it were. I am joined today by Alyssa Strand, Cavallo's esteemed product manager for SalesPad and one of our leading profit scientists. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey there, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you here on our first episode. All right. So before we dive into Automation Agent, I know that's what we're here to talk about. That's what here folks are here for. But I wanted to start things off a little bit differently, a little non-product question. What's something you're weirdly good at that has nothing to do with work?
Yeah, so I grew up in the era of Guitar Hero and Rock Band and Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh yeah.
So I grew up with that, and I'm super weirdly good at DDR. And we've got a lot of these new like virtual reality games lately, like Beat Saber and Synth Riders, and they're that same style of like things coming at you on the screen, and you need to move around with it. So I would say I'm pretty good at those.
I like that. I grew up with Rock Band. That was definitely one that I was a big fan of. I actually remember one time we were down a band member and I had to strap the microphone to my head and sing while I was doing the drumming at the same time, a la Genesis or something. So it was quite fun.
That's amazing. Drums were always my instrument too. I love that on Rock Band.
Yeah, it was always a good one. I'm a bass player, so that was the other one I played as well. So
Nice.
all right. So, and actually wanted to, on that note, talking about music stuff, we got these cool shirts, these Cavallo brand shirts that, yeah, look at that. Stairway to Profit.
Yes, love that. Yeah, it's got, I think it's Icarus from one of Led Zeppelin's
Yep.
albums, and then
Yeah.
Stairway to Profit. And then the sleeve has like a fun profit advisory,
I'm taking
explicit
credit for that one.
margins.
Eddie is our creative guy who's come up with those shirts. For those of you familiar, we have a bunch of great rock band style shirts, and we really like these. So stick around towards the end. There's actually going to be an opportunity for you to snag one of these. So we'll for folks on there, stick around. We'll give you some info on that. All right. So I want to switch gears. Obviously, we were here to talk about Automation Agent. It's been a big focus of your team. You guys have been doing a lot of amazing work. For folks that maybe haven't used Automation Agent or aren't familiar with it, or even folks that maybe have used it, just can you give us a high level overview of Automation Agent and its kind of its value?
Yeah, for sure. So Automation Agent lets people just set up automated tasks on a schedule. So it's kind of like SQL jobs. You can set them up to run automatically in the background. But the nice thing about Automation Agent is that all of the logic is built in, and there's a bunch of settings that people can use to configure it to work exactly the way that they need it. So there's a bunch of different job types that are built in, and people can just automate those tasks and save time.
That's awesome. So how does that fit into like a day to day for your customers, for your workflow, et cetera?
Yeah, so it varies because there are these different job types that are doing different tasks for people. So Automation Agent is tied into SalesPad workflow so that you can have it automatically forward sales orders on a schedule. So some of our customers have like third-party integrations. Maybe they're using Smart Connect and GP to bring in sales orders. But then they need those to start moving through the SalesPad workflow. So those can get dumped in a landing queue, and then Automation Agent can look at that queue, automatically forward those orders out so that they can start evaluating on those rules, checking customer credit limits and back orders, and routing those sales orders accordingly. But
Okay.
it's more than just workflow because you can have it automate sending reports and AR statements to customers.
Very
There's
cool.
also just open-ended scripting, which really, with that, the sky's the limit because it's really about whatever you can create in C# scripting, and then it'll just do it automatically for you.
Okay. So you mentioned scripting, and we have automation agent and scripting. What's the difference between those two?
Yeah, so SalesPad out of the box comes with just built-in scripting, but it's at specific trigger points in the application. So, like when you save a sales document or when a sales order processes through a certain workflow queue, it can trigger this built-in scripting. So maybe it's doing extra validation, or doing automatic calculations behind the scenes. But the thing is, with that scripting, there's still a user who needs to do something. So they're loading a document or saving it or pushing it through workflow. But with automation agent scripting, it's just doing that automatically in the background for you.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So scripting's kind of the checks as you go along, whereas automation is doing the job for you, so you don't have to get your hands dirty.
Yes,
I like that.
exactly.
I like that. Okay. So let's talk about how customers are using it, because obviously that's a big thing. We can talk about what it does, but let's talk about how customers use it. So can you walk us through some real world use cases? Maybe start at the basic level with stuff that would probably benefit anybody who's using Automation Agent.
Yeah, for sure. One of the more basic jobs is just transferring sales documents between certain states. So you can transfer quotes to orders and you can transfer orders into invoices. So not everybody uses quotes, but a lot of our customers use sales orders. And if you use sales orders in GP, you need to invoice them. You need to post the invoice to have that actually affect finances in your inventory. So with this, you can automate the invoicing step so that you don't need to have a user going in and transferring all of those orders to invoice. That can just happen automatically. Those can land in a certain batch that you then just post in GP. So it really removes that manual task so you don't need to have a user sitting there all the time. And it makes it happen more often because, I mean, if a user has to do the task, maybe they're checking it every so often, but that can still lead to delays where these orders are just hanging out, waiting. So with Automation Agent, you can set it up to run as often as you'd like. So with
Nice.
this kind of situation, it could be like every 5 minutes, it could look at these orders and move them to the invoice stage.
So that's very cool. How does it know which orders it's supposed to transfer?
Yeah, so that's all configuration. So with these AA jobs, they have lots of settings that people can use to tailor the behavior to what they need it to do. So with this scenario, they set it up to look at a certain workflow queue. And then AA just looks at that workflow queue, takes all of those orders, and transfers them all to invoices.
Very cool. Okay. All right. So that's kind of seems like something that almost anybody could benefit from. And like I said, maybe it's a basic use case, even though it's very advanced as functionality goes. What's something that's a little bit more intermediate that maybe not as many folks have used, but definitely is a very powerful solution?
Yeah, so a bit more intermediate is probably the sending of reports. Like AR statements is a big one. You can actually have Automation Agent just send AR statements to your customers for you automatically. So we have like not everybody works with customers where they have these special payment terms where they can pay after the fact. But if you do, like we have a customer who does like transportation services for their customers. So then they get maybe they have net 30 payment terms and then they're collecting after the fact. So they can right now, I think they were, before they had the automation in place, anyways, they had one person who would go through and spend upwards of a day every month just going through, looking at all their customers who had balances due, figuring out who was worth sending AR statements to and
Oh man.
handling those communications. So that's a lot of time that people can get back.
Wow, yeah, that is a lot of time. I need one of those for my expense reports, so I don't have to sit there and spend all the time on that. So kind of like a little bit like the other piece. How does it figure out who to send those statements to?
Yeah, so again, a bunch of settings. So people can set it up so that it's looking for customers who have certain payment terms or a certain outstanding balance. We also have scripting. So if people have special rules, we can just script it in to find a certain set of customers and send to them. You can also have it select which contacts it needs to send to. So the primary bill to is the most frequent one I've heard of there, but we have a variety of options. And we also added support for national accounts recently, which is pretty cool. So with that, people can have like parent and child structures for their customers.
Uh-huh.
So for this transportation service company, like they work with schools frequently. So like I graduated from Mattawan. So Mattawan Consolidated Schools being like the overarching parent company, but then there could be Mattawan High School and Mattawan Middle School and the elementary
Gotcha.
school, and all of them could be contracting services through this company. So with the job, you can have it send the AR statement to the parent company, the Consolidated School Network, and it can include the AR information for all of those child companies, which is super helpful.
Okay. Okay. And it sounds, I'm imagining those reports are also, I feel like settings comes up a lot. That seems like the kind of thing that you probably could set in there. So those can be sent with that as well.
Yeah, yeah, you're catching on to our theme here. So it's all configuration. So you can set up printed reports in SalesPad, and you can really tailor those to have the exact font and structure and branding that you want, like your company logo, so that it looks all official and it's coming from you. And you can set up whether it includes like the invoice reports or return reports. That way the customer knows why they have this balance and where that's coming from. And you can also set up the email template. So when it sends this email and it attaches the AR statement as the report, you would probably want it to say something specific in the email so that your customer knows it's coming from you. It looks all official and branded. So all of that is configurable.
Okay. What about I can imagine that customers probably have like different rules for different customers, like they require different things. So can that be configured for that?
Yeah, yeah, that's super common. So that's actually a really easy one. So with the AA jobs, you can set up multiple jobs that have the same type. So you can have multiple AR statement jobs, and for each one, you can set up which customers it's targeting, which reports it's sending. That way, if you have special rules around like these customers want to see the invoice reports and these customers don't. Or if you have like the national accounts, so with the parent accounts, we want to send this specific type of report. But for people that aren't national accounts, we have a more generic AR statement that gets sent out. So you can have just different jobs for each of those scenarios.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So it's funny. My next question that we've been talking basic, intermediate, but all of this seems very advanced. But what is something that's maybe a little more advanced, a little farther out there, kind of on the edge case of what people have done with Automation Agent?
Yeah, so Automation Agent actually now integrates with Inventory Manager, which is super cool. That's our WMS solution. So people can have Automation Agent connect to Inventory Manager to automatically assign pickers for sales orders once they're ready for fulfillment. So it auto assigns to a picker, and then in the mobile app, the picker can see the orders that are assigned to them and they can start fulfilling that order.
That's pretty awesome. And is that so? All of that is set up in Automation Agent.
Yeah, it's a bit of both for that one.
Okay.
So on the automation agent side, people set up like which workflow queue it's looking at to know which orders are ready to be picked. And then the sequence of the orders so that like your highest priority customers, their orders are getting assigned out first so that they're able to ship first. But then on the inventory manager side, that's where you're configuring like which of your users are pickers, and maybe you have certain pickers that are in a picking group. And then you're also setting up the priorities for these assignments. So I could have like sales orders for my Amazon customer, and those need to be assigned to my Amazon picking group because they know all the special rules around how Amazon needs those orders to be shipped. Or I could have orders that have like a rush ship shipping method. So those need to be assigned to my rush ship picking group because they have a lower capacity so that they're able to just turn the flywheel really quickly, get those orders out the door. And then anything else you could have just assigned randomly to pickers based on their current capacity, or you could have it skip assignment and then it'll just go to this like open bucket and any picker would be able to pick up that order. So lots of configuration options here
Yeah.
again, and some level of complexity there for sure.
That's pretty awesome. It sounds like I mean it sounds like the nice thing here is we have the ability to solve a whole lot of use cases depending upon what a customer needs. It also makes me
Yes.
think about I'm thinking about all this automation and I'm wondering how I could use it in my daily life. What's something you would benefit from if you could use Automation Agent for anything?
Yeah, yeah. So I have a ton of books at home, like
Ah.
bookcases full of books. And I have them all super organized because I'm just super, I need all of my things to be organized. So it's by genre. Like I've got honestly like two full bookshelves of fantasy books. And then I have like sci-fi and like some classic literature, some science books. So I've got it by genre and then by like author's last name. But then I buy so many new books that I have to reorganize and shift things around. So it would be awesome if I could automate that.
Need a little bit of automation and scripting. So as it comes in, organize it by author. I'm with you.
Yes, custom rules for sure.
I like that. I would probably have to use it for my records. I would have to have my record collection when I get a new one. And I feel like
Yes.
it's like the scene from High Fidelity when he's organizing by autobiographical when I bought the album, and you never know how to organize all that.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so what's the just kind of craziest thing or one of the crazier things that people have done with Automation Agent?
Mm. So probably in the realm of scripting, because scripting is so open-ended, like you can create whatever you want with it. So often people use that for like integrations with third-party systems. Because SalesPad, I mean, we offer certain out-of-the-box e-commerce integrations, for example, like Shopify, WooCommerce, Adobe Commerce slash Magento. But people could use other e-commerce providers that we don't support out of the box yet. And they could use Automation Agent and sometimes also our web API to transfer that information back and forth.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so I was thinking about this when you were talking about inventory manager and the warehouse stuff, and I remember going back, this is ages ago when I worked at Hewlett Packard in Corrales. We had a very big, production facility, and they had just started rolling out these little carts that were robots that had a little trail that they had to go on, but they were actually delivering pallets from place to place with the print ink and print jets. I've heard rumors that may have some customers that have been working with some robotics, and it may be tied in with Automation Agent. I'd be curious to hear about that.
Yeah, yeah, that I can confirm. So we've had a couple different customers actually create like warehouse robotics integrations. I think both of them used Automation Agent and our web API just because of how the data needs to flow in certain ways. But it's super cool because both of these situations, like they have robots that you set up to know the warehouse layout. So they know like where all the racks are, they know where your bins are, they know the inventory availability and which sales orders you need to fulfill. And then they actually lead the picker down the warehouse to find the items. So they'll stop and tell the picker which item they need out of which bin. The picker grabs the item and sticks it on the robot, and they keep going to fulfill the order. So it's super cool, but it needs that information to flow both ways, right? Because you need to be able to send that inventory availability information and like the sales orders from SalesPad to the robots. And then the robots need to be able to send back like which cereals and lots were picked, which bins they pulled the items out of. That way, all of the information in the ERP is up to date. And again, we're keeping that inventory availability in sync. So it's really cool. Those integrations have been some of the coolest that we have consulted on our side.
That's pretty awesome. That makes me want a robot butler to help me like clean up around my house and stuff. So
Yes,
let's get working on that and see if we can't figure that out. I'm gonna put that on the roadmap.
exactly. Direct the little Roombas around to do more
Yeah.
for
If you
you.
see that on the roadmap, you know that was me. Okay, so this has been awesome. Before we go, if anyone is curious about Automation Agent, obviously reach out to your account manager. I didn't open up Q&A because this is kind of more of a podcast style, a little lighter version of a webinar. But obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in there. Probably not going to address them here, but we will certainly get back to you. But again, you can always obviously reach out to your account manager and ask for information on that, and ask for information on Automation Agent and the other piece of things that we've talked about today. I want to thank you everybody for joining us for the first episode of Conversations with Cavallo. This was very exciting. Thank you, Alyssa, for spending time with me today and all of us here. That was awesome.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be the first one for our first episode of Conversations with Cavallo.
I love it. I know we're going to have you back. So we already got a few lined up. But for those of you out there who are interested in learning about Automation Agent, can do for your business, we would love to talk to you about it. And we actually have a promotion right now for 50% off implementation of Automation Agent through the end of June. Now, this is for our current customers, but if you are not a current SalesPad customer, if you are on Great Plains and you've been thinking about SalesPad and you like what you're hearing about Automation Agent, might be able to twist the arm of the sales manager, and see if we can't extend that 50% off implementation for Automation Agent. But if you're a SalesPad customer out there, you don't have an Automation Agent, you're interested in implementing, go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll make that happen. All right. Additionally, I mentioned the t-shirts. We'd greatly appreciate your feedback. We do have a special offer. Anyone who completes our survey today will receive a new hot off the press Cavallo t-shirt. Just let us know what size and where to send it, and you will receive it soon. They do run, I would say, pretty normal. You might want to go to just the bigger size, but just as an FYI. And with that, we're about to wrap up. Keep your eyes out. Next months, we're going to have a couple of different things. We're going to have our very own Elizabeth Morse talking about our Elevate customer conference. We'll probably have Alyssa back to talk about some other pieces of the sales pad piece, or some of our product managers from our profit analytics side and our cloud side, as well as maybe we'll have some people like Mike come in and talk to you a little bit about his vision for the future. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Have a great day. Enjoy. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, all. Have a good one.